First guest in this, I will agree with you, Chris McGovern, chair of the Campaign for Real Education, an all-round sane commentator on these issues. Good morning to you, Chris.
Good morning, Julia.
Good morning. Well, look, you'll have done A-levels, you were a head teacher, you were also an Ofsted inspector, an examiner. You've done it all. Let's just go through some of the stats today. Hundreds of thousands, I think it's around the 750,000 mark, youngsters taking A-levels, 200,000 taking BTECs, a couple of thousand taking T-levels. But it's A-level results that everyone focuses on. And let's go back to where we were 2019. 25% of exams got an A or an A-star grade in 2019. In 2020, when exams were cancelled during lockdowns, we saw a huge number of pupils being awarded A grades, massively higher than they would normally have got by their teachers. They were then deflated down by the exam boards. Massive outcry. Oh, and they were put back up again. We saw 38% of youngsters get those grades. And then in 2021, it got even worse. 45% got given A or A-star grades at A-level. Back in 2022, last year, it went back down again to 36%. We're told this year we're going back down again, closer to where he started, around the 25% mark. It'll be a lot more than that, but going back down. Is this the unluckiest cohort ever? They've missed out on a lot of the teaching. They had a load of lockdowns during their GCSE years. They've had teacher strikes this year, but they're not going to enjoy a nice bit of grade inflation.
Look, they've had a tough time of it, no doubt about it. But what I would say to them, yes, today we're going to have results. Perhaps 25% will get the A grades. When I was doing A-levels, 10% got the A grades. Yeah. So things could be worse. We've gone through 3 decades of grade inflation. And in the last couple of years, we've had hyperinflation. I'm afraid to say this, Julia, but the game is up for A-levels and GCSEs, for that matter. We need to start again. You know, there are a lot of students today who may be disappointed, but they need to remember that the world doesn't depend on them going to university. Yes. You know, they need to get a job, and there's lots of opportunities in the world of work and apprenticeships, so there are alternative pathways. But also, you know, the universities, I know they're offering more places to overseas students than they used to, but you have to remember, they get more money for that, of course, but you have to remember, if you're a student in Singapore, which is top of the league internationally, they also do our A-levels, but they do a different version. Not many people know that. They do a harder version, so they can get in with lower grades. So we need to revalue our education system. The educational currency is finished. Yeah. We need to start again. Either we need to do the Singapore A-levels and GCSEs or O-levels they do, or we need to have a new exam so it has credibility.
Well, except they keep changing things. I mean, GCSEs, they're going to be graded 1 to 9 again instead of A grades, because now the 9 is equivalent to an A-star and an 8 is an A-star. I mean, we're just into this sort of ridiculous situation where we just constantly change these things. Instead of having, it seems to me the obvious situation is that you have the same number of people, same percentage of the cohort getting the top grades every year, 10%, 15%, whatever it is, getting A grades, and then 20% getting B grades, whatever it is. It's the fact that it changes every year is crazy, and particularly the fact that the cohorts in the last few years who've got the top grades are the ones who would have been taught the least. Now, it's not their fault that happened, and it's not the fault of a youngster who went to a school where they just basically pretty much shut up shop and didn't so much as even send a bit of homework back to pupils for many months on end. Certainly in 2020, a lot of schools did that. I mean, it was absolutely outrageous what happened to so many pupils. They've lost out. They had teacher strikes this year as well. It's not their fault. But at the end of the day, they won't have learnt as much, but more of them will get top grades. What is certainly an employer, when they finally do get into the world of work, whether it's this autumn or whether it's in 3 or 4 years' time after uni, what on earth is an employer supposed to make of it? Because you've probably got youngsters, who are we kidding? You've got A grades who can barely spell.
You're correct, and the employers are telling us that they're tending to ignore the exam results now and set their own tests. But Julia, you're missing one thing here, I'm afraid. The head of the government's watchdog, Ofwell, the watchdog for exam standards, told the Sunday Times a few years ago, and I quote, "All our kids are brilliant. All our kids are brilliant." So the fact that they're getting 45% grade A's, that tells you the Alice in Wonderland world in which we're living over this situation.
Yeah. You know, you absolutely nailed it. And we've always got this thing, every child is... You only have to, with all due respect, every office I've worked in, you only have to look around to know. It's very unlikely there were all these brilliant children and everyone could reach their potential when you see the state of some people in the workplace these days. I mean, this is the thing. We have had such highly politicised exam grades for so many years. I mean, it all started under Tony Blair, really, didn't it? And it's become a sort of a matter for, political debate, how many youngsters get certain grades, as opposed to what they are learning. And I find it fascinating how many of the broadcasters and commentators are focusing on these poor pupils. They were in year 10 and they didn't get to do exams, you know, in year 11. I mean, I'd love not being able to do exams in year 11. But actually, they do all sit exams. The problem in schools these days is they sit non-stop practice exams, mock this, mock that, mock that. They've had plenty of experience doing exams. What they don't do is have lots of experience learning stuff and learning it properly and having useful information they can take out into their adult lives.
Yeah, I remember Margaret Thatcher saying to me once, Chris, she said, you know, all exams can do is measure knowledge and understanding. That's all they can do. They can't be kind or whatever,
Yes.
test anything else. That's all they can do. I noticed during the lockdown, by the way, we didn't dilute the quality of the driving test. We didn't inflate the driving test results because we know that's important.
Yeah.
So, and I taught for 35 years and I taught many years teaching A-level. I will tell you something about young people. Yes, they want to be treated well and they want to be treated generously, but they want the truth more than they want to know how actually they did. And when people they criticize me, they say, "Oh, I'm always criticizing exam standards." But your young people want to know where they stand, and where they stand is in mathematics about 3 years behind those in Singapore. That's a real statistic coming from the so-called OECD number crunchers. So we've got problems here, but we need to face up to those problems. Yeah. But look, you know, I don't want to spoil the party today. Let young people have good results and enjoy those. If they didn't get good results, don't get too depressed, for heaven's sake. Exactly. There's a lot you can do in the world, and actually you may be better off not going to university. In many cases, that's the case.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more on all of that. But also, I do think when people talk about how unfair it is, these youngsters didn't get the teaching and then they're not going to get the grade inflation. I always thought, you know, the kids who were most badly treated in terms of exams, as opposed to the kids who lost out on their education, which is an awful lot of state schools. But in the poorest areas, the kids who most need education to get a better life in the future was actually the brightest pupils who worked the hardest, who really deserved to get those top grades. And then they were among, you know, 45 in 2021, 45% of youngsters got those grades. And so they don't stand out for all the hard work and the time and effort that they've put in and the brain power they've got. They don't stand out for an employer or for a university entrance tutor, and they've been treated badly. I mean, this is the thing. Honesty is the key thing here, isn't it? We need to be honest with our youngsters about what they can and can't do. I had a friend's teenager talking about wanting to be a lawyer, wanting to be a doctor, and I said, what sort of grades are you getting? And she was getting C grades in maths and sciences, and I said, OK, well, can you up those grades to A? You know, if you want to be a doctor, you're going to have to be getting A grades in those subjects. And I don't think so. I said, OK, well then, unless you can, I'm not saying you can't. It's only up, you know, it's up to you. I think you should drop that plan. And saying to kids, you can be anything you want to be. Well, you can't. I mean, I can't be a ballet dancer, you know, and I can't be an astrophysicist. Do you know what I mean? I can't. And there's no point telling your children they can be anything. If you work hard, if you put in the time and the effort, you can be a great success in the field that you succeed in. But it does involve working hard, and it does involve you having some skills in that area.
Yeah, absolutely right. The point, you know, I make in the Telegraph this morning, I said that the exam system fails to distinguish between the Isaac Newtons and they're just good average and so forth. But all youngsters have a vocation for something, you know. One of the reasons why I'm not a great critic of immigration, by the way, because we need immigrants because they are more skilled than our own produce. You know, we need people from overseas to do the jobs we can't do. Desperately important. We fill those jobs. And when I was growing up, my mum used to say to me, get a trade, you know. Well, actually, I went to university and became a historian, but get a trade. Nothing wrong with getting a trade, being a plumber or a builder or whatever.
Honestly,
make a lot of money and
they make a lot more money than most graduates do. I don't understand why people don't want to encourage their youngsters to do that.
And they go to university and drop out because they can't cope. And it's a desperate situation, this.
Absolutely.
So we need to rethink the whole thing and start again, get back onto some sort of educational gold standard and stop misleading children. And we want more teachers to understand the world of work. I worked in industry before I became a teacher. You need to know what's going on outside the classroom. It's not just about university. We have to support our economy. Instead, we're supporting the economies of other countries by taking lots and lots of foreign students.
Absolutely.
What sense is there in that?
Couldn't agree with you more. Chris McGovern, always good to talk to you.